I was struggling with the idea that God was male. I mean, I'm 18 years old. I'm involved in the feminist movement at the time. And Jesus himself is male, and you are asked as a Christian to worship him. I was struggling, and I felt guilty. Like, how can I question this faith that I have, but at the same time, I was questioning it. I wanted to fix myself. I wanted to fix it. I was disturbed by my struggle. And there was a course offered called Introduction to Old Testament. What I could find out was that the professor was a practicing Christian. So I felt safe, like, okay, I can do this. Well, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, because I took the class, and after 3 weeks of being in the class, I could no longer be Christian. And in the last sujood, I said, oh God, if this Quran, if these are your words, then I'm a Muslim. But if not, I need you to tell me right now, because I really don't want to do this.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Tamara Gray. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I want to start with, who is Tamara Gray? Can you tell us briefly about your life?
Alaikum salam, and thank you for having me here. It's really fun to be with all of you. Well, I am from Minnesota, which is a northern state. I was raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. I was born in 1966, and then I became a Muslim in 1985. I really love change and difference and exciting new things. I think that would be me in a nutshell. I was a good student. I was an academic type, kind of a brainy type. Then I traveled overseas. I lived in Damascus for 20 years. There I studied Islamic studies. So you can say all the fields of Islam in the old-fashioned traditional sit at the foot of a sheikh or sheikha. As you can see, when I tell you my biography, I'm focusing on the fun things I've learned, because I love to be in school. I love all things education. I love all things learning. I have 3 amazing adult children. I have 2 grandchildren. Yeah, that's me.
How was your life in regards to faith? What were you believing in?
I was actually the most religious in my family. So even as a child, as a Christian, I was the one who was involved. I went to camp. I went to youth group. I did little mission trips. So I was a very Christian, religious person. I believe very strongly in God and cared a lot about my spiritual self. I think that's the right way to say it. And I think all of my life, even as a young person, I saw spirituality and a relationship with God, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a solution to individual and societal problems.
What was the thing that made you question your beliefs? Was it an event or a thought?
So as I was growing older as a young person, I was 17 years old between the end of high school and the beginning of college. That summer, I was a counselor, Christian camp in the summer, as usual, and I was really conflicted. Why was I conflicted? Because I was at a stage in my life where women's rights and the oppression of women and the problems of women, they were hurting me, and I was overwhelmed by them. I was suddenly aware of how much women are suffering in the world and in the United States and in the workplace and in home, and a lot of things that people like to call feminist issues, but they are really women's issues. They're real pain that women were going through. And at 17, I was really overwhelmed by it, just disturbed by it. So what with that happening, I was struggling with the idea that God was male. Of course, if you were to speak to a Christian today, they might tell you, no, God isn't male, but representation of God in Christianity was male. The Father and the Son, they're male. And Jesus himself, beloved Isa alayhi salam, Jesus himself in the Christian church is represented by, astaghfirullah, but as represented as the Son of God, is male, and you are asked as a Christian to worship him. I was struggling, and I felt guilty. Like, how can I question this faith that I have, but at the same time, I was questioning it. I can reaffirm my faith. That was my hope. I wanted to reaffirm. I wanted to fix myself. I wanted to fix it. Well, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, because I took the class, and after 3 weeks of being in the class, I could no longer be Christian. So I left Christianity, and then I embarked on the search for a religion that would fulfill my belief, which was I believed very strongly that there was a God. If there is a God, then he wouldn't create us and leave us alone. He would take care of us. He would tell us what we need. He would give us the tools that we need to live.
What was your view of Islam back then? Did you have any prejudices?
I had very little knowledge of Islam, like almost zero. So actually, the reality is I didn't really have a sort of typical road. It's not because I learned, it's not because I met amazing Muslims. I did meet some amazing Muslims later, but in this stage, I met Muslims, but they weren't practicing. So what happened for me is that I was searching for a religion and looking at everything except for Islam. I had left Christianity early September. By the end of December, I'm like, what's going on? I haven't found a religion yet. How can I be in this position? And so I was talking to a young man at the university, an international student. I didn't know he was Muslim, but I was talking to him and I asked him, what religion are you? And he said, I'm a Muslim. And I was really taken aback because he seemed so normal. Like he seemed like a normal person. I couldn't believe that he was a Muslim. And so over the course of that conversation, I heard him talk about his sister who had put on hijab. As a result of that conversation, I became very interested in the idea of hijab as something that would be a tool that women could use in order to avoid sexual harassment in the workplace. I mean, I'm 18 years old. I'm involved in the feminist movement at the time. I'm really interested in, I'm disturbed by how the struggle of women in the workplace and how at that time in the world, we were just beginning to hear about all the sexual harassment that women were dealing with. But it was very overwhelming. And so I thought, oh gosh, this hijab thing, like that's really a good idea. So like a couple of days later, or maybe the next day, I was thinking, well, gosh, this religion has something in it that I think is a good tool. Maybe I need to investigate that religion. Maybe I need to give it a chance. But he gave me, every possible dua you could make in the prayer, writing it in this enormous piece of paper. Okay, thank you very much. I take it. I go back to my room. I haven't read the Mus'haf yet. I haven't read the Qur'an yet. Well, I sit down with the Qur'an and I say, oh God, let it open to what you want me to read. So it opens up to the verse in Surah Al-Ahzab, إِنَّ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَالْمُسْلِمَاتِ وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْقَانِتِينَ وَالْقَانِتَاتِ to the end of the verse. And I'm just, I'm stunned. I can't believe it. And it's a joke. It's a joke that I tell people now. I think it's so funny because I'm sitting there in my state of being stunned and overwhelmed. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, Islam has equity between men and women in the faith. So I got up, I took that prayer that the boy gave me, and I took that prayer and I held it in my hand and I did all the movements. And in the last sujood, I said, oh God, if this Qur'an, these are your words, then I'm a Muslim. But if not, I need you to tell me right now because I really don't want to do this. But in that state of sujood, I knew the Qur'an was from Allah. Like I knew. So when I raised up my head from that prayer, between me and God, I was Muslim. Now, there's then the entering into the Muslim community, which is another story. But that's why it's hard for me to answer, like, how did my view of Islam change? Actually, it didn't change at all because I knew nothing.
What impressed you the most about Islam?
I guess at that stage what impressed me most was that the Quran spoke very adamantly and strongly about the position of women in Islam. And no matter what everybody was doing, it seemed to me that Islam had a very strong opinion that women matter, that their persons matter, that their life matters, that their happiness matters, that their relationship with Allah is their own and not dependent on other people. All of that was really important to me. And that came from just that verse and a few other verses that I read. I was not yet versed in hardly anything else in Islam. Islam is not the problem. Islam is not the issue here. There are historical issues, cultural issues, personal issues, family issues, and a lack of prayer. And in the spiritual world, an attack of shaitan, a victory, a'udhu billah, for shaitan that is drawing us away from the core practices of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're looking at a human being who treated women as full people. And it's example after example. And it's really not, it's not a milk bottle approach. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have a milk bottle approach or Coke bottle approach, meaning that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam not only accepted, but encouraged women to each have their own personality. So when we stand up at a minbar, or when anybody stands at a minbar or takes a microphone or is on TikTok or is anywhere where they're saying that the good Muslim women can only be ABC, they haven't studied the seerah. Because if you look at the women around the Prophet, we have women like Shifa, who was very brainy, academic, healing type person who had ambition. We have Aisha radiallahu anha. These are the names that we say a lot, but Aisha radiallahu anha, who is really the beginning of a long really long senate of women teachers. And her sort of graduation, if you will, from the school of Muhammad as a professor, who then began to bring others in and teach them, that is, again, her personality. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that the Prophet interacted with women as who they were. It's just ridiculous that today we want all women to be one kind of woman. And we pressure each other. Like, if you're not, whatever that type of woman is, like, it doesn't even matter. Different groups pressure each other to be one kind of woman. No, Allah created us all differently. We work together. Each one of our personalities is important. So when you ask me about the Prophet, I think the most important lesson we learned from him about this question in itself is that his interaction with women was one of interacting with them as full human beings. And that is where Muslim women are struggling. We're not always interacted with as full human beings. Sometimes we're treated as children. Sometimes we're treated as secondary. Sometimes our opinions are not wanted. That's not how the Prophet interacted with women. So anyway, as far as women, the more we know, the more we're going to feel confident in our faith. We're going to love our Prophet more. We're going to grow, and we're going to be able to manage the high pressure that our community gives us. Just looking at him and knowing him, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa baraka alayhi, and how he interacted with women and how he really gave us a place in society that never existed before, or really difficult to find since. I did become Muslim in 1985, January 1985, and it was a tough year for me. There was a lot of change, and I was really struggling. And I remember standing at a street corner here and just waiting to cross and making dua in my heart and saying, Ya Allah, you have to take care of me, because I don't know how much longer I can do this on my own. And that moment, I got the phone number of a woman in California who was Syrian. God bless her, Ya Rabbi, and give her great reward in the akhirah. And so I started talking to her on the phone, and she's a great support to me. And then I actually went to visit her. And I went to visit her more than once, not invited, just inviting myself and never feeling uninvited. So just think about that. Like, I literally put myself into her lap for 3 weeks. 3 weeks! And she never made me feel uninvited. In fact, quite the opposite. She made me feel important and valued. Anyway, over time, I think the third visit, when I went, I discovered there was something called a shifa. There was something called a woman who was a teacher. There wasn't only male teachers in the world. I really wanted to learn from women, and I feel really blessed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to that deep desire and dua of my heart and my action. In a way, it was an action dua, because it really gave me the fortitude that I need to be able to do the work that I do today, and to understand how important it is for women to be with women. There's some spiritual stages in our lives. We need to be with women, and we need friendships, and we need community, and we need teachers who understand us and who are not going to dismiss us, and teachers who we can sit at their feet, teachers who we can hug, and teachers who we can sit next to closely and stand next to closely in prayer. All of this is very important, and we shouldn't belittle the importance of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided it from the time of Aisha anha and others of the Ummahat and Mu'mineen and others in the Tabi'een, and continued throughout history. So it's a really important part of our history, and we should recognize it, uplift it, and I think as women we should seek it.
Can you describe your personal experience with tahajjud and how it has impacted your faith?
So when I became Muslim in 1985, this was pre-Google. So I don't have internet access to learning things. I got to find a book. I got to find a person. And I had some drama with my roommate in becoming Muslim. And so I met some Malaysian sisters on campus, and they invited me to live with them. Yay. So I moved in with them. And the first night we prayed Isha. This was new for me still. Like, it was still just a couple of months. Still Salat Isha on time. It was new for me. So we prayed Isha, and as we finished, I immediately took off my prayer clothes, and she turned to me and she said, "Aren't you going to pray witr?" I had never heard of witr. I had no idea what she was talking about. What is witr? I don't know. But I didn't know what to say, because I was like, I guess my 18-year-old self did not want to look down. So I just went quiet. And then she said, "Oh, you prayed after tahajjud." I was like, "What is tahajjud?" I had no idea what either one of these things are. But I said, "Yeah, that's right. I prayed after tahajjud." And so she said, "Shall I wake you?" And I said, "Yeah, wake me." Of course, I don't know what is going on. I don't know what is going on. I frantically start looking in my books. So I'm just looking, trying to figure out what these things are. And then, she woke me up for tahajjud. And I started praying tahajjud. I would say that tahajjud is the keystone helmet. When you have tahajjud, you're not going to miss your photo prayers. When you have tahajjud, it is a keystone helmet for a spiritual life. I mean, and I always say it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 2 rak'ahs before Fajr. You can pop up. You're going to get up for Fajr anyway. Pop up 10 minutes before and jump, make wudu, and pray 2 rak'ahs. It will change your life. So yeah, very, very important. I'm blessed and grateful to those beautiful Malaysian Muslim sisters who had the guts to say to this brand new Muslim, are you praying tahajjud? And that I'm glad I didn't say anything. I'm glad I didn't say no, because I wasn't. I didn't know what that was. I'm glad I didn't say no. I'm glad I just went quiet and let her say, shall I wake you? Between the time of that and by the time she woke me, I had figured out it's some kind of Sunnah prayer at night. So it was good enough. Like I could bumble my way through it in those early days. So alhamdulillah.
From your experience with tahajjud, how can we be more dedicated in our worship?
When we see Ahl al-Ghazza, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them not only victory, but khayr and goodness, dunya wa akhirah, like just ease and blessing. War is real, and you still have to live your life around war. You still have to cook. You still have to go to school. You still have to go to work. You still have to find a way to make money to pay your bills. And as a Westerner who hasn't experienced war, that was really actually a wake up to me. You're really tested on your belief in the akhirah. If we were, instead of being wrapped up by the dunya, if we recognize, well, we could die anytime, that which is important to us is going to change. We need to learn this. We need to learn that the akhirah is real. The more real it becomes to us, the more our lives are going to reflect that reality. So if I bring tahajjud to this, I do think that if our aqeedah is stronger, then our tahajjud game is going to be better, because we're going to crave that connection. We're going to know that we need that prayer more than we need sleep. We're going to recognize that sleep is not giving us what tahajjud will give us. Sleep comes to us for many reasons, and sleep is important. There's no human being on the earth that can go without sleep. However, tahajjud is more nutritious for us than sleep. I once tried to get a grant to do a sleep study on people who pray tahajjud and people who don't. I wanted to prove that people who pray tahajjud just need less sleep. I didn't get the grant, and I don't blame them for not getting it because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a sleep studies specialist. But really, it is important for us as Muslims. Like, Muslims should do these studies.
What would you say to a girl who is about to take off her hijab?
Well, I would say a lot. I would say understand that, first of all, we need to just be really clear. And I want to say it clearly with a clear statement. Hijab is follow. If one is challenged by hijab, it's really important to understand that that challenge is probably coming because of the environment that you're in. Get a better environment, get better friends, get people who will support you, get people who are going to make you feel good about yourself. That's a tip. But I also am going to say something else. Our Prophet, when he and the companions came back from Badr many years later, there was a companion who, right before Fatah Makkah, he tried to, by sewing a note to his family members into the hair, braiding a note into the hair of a woman who was going to Mecca in order to warn them that the Muslims are coming. This is before Fatah Makkah. This is really, I mean, in our world today, it's like a shared trade secret. Umar ibn al-Khattab, he wanted to kill him. The Prophet said, no, ya Umar, because he is of Ahl al-Badr. What do you know but that the people of Ahl al-Badr, that Allah has forgiven them? So I tell this story in answer to your question because for some women, hijab will be their Badr. It will be a battle every day. It'll be a challenge. We live in a time where the makeup industry is $1 billion industry, where the sexualization, objectification of women and women's bodies is so over the top that we think it's normal. We live in a time where women's opinions in general are often not taken seriously. And so in this time, it's really important for us to stand at our Badr. If hijab is your Badr, then make your intention that it's Badr and struggle through. Allah will help you if you struggle through. If you're wearing hijab and not praying, that's a reason you're feeling weak. Start praying. If you're thinking, I'm wearing hijab, but if I take off hijab, I'm going to do better at my prayers. That's not true. That's shaitan. Everyone I've seen who took off hijab, it is a slippery slope. They start off saying, I'm taking off hijab. Next, they're not praying. Next, they're they're like, I'm just going to take off hijab, but I'm going to wear long sleeves and I'm going to wear modest clothes. 2 months later, they're not doing that. All of this is because Shaitan has had a victory. And you need to know that if you are being whispered to that your hijab is in the way or it's a pain or whatever, this is Shaitan. And so we don't want to give victory to Shaitan. Give victory to the angels that are whispering to you. And go to your Badr every day and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you victory. Badr did not last forever and it will not last forever for you. You will come out on the other side and you will be strong and you will feel better and Allah will give you that which you need in your heart. Get good community. It's okay. Make it your Badr and Allah will reward you.
If our Prophet, peace be upon him, entered the room right now, what would you like to say to him?
I would ask him how I'm doing, I guess. I would ask for him to speak to me as though I were a Sahabiya and to call upon me to live that life. I would ask him to correct the mistakes I'm making, to align me with their lives, and then I would ask to pray with him. I'd really want to pray with him as my Imam, by myself, nobody else.
After witnessing what is happening in Gaza, many non-Muslims have become interested in Islam. How do you see the future of Islam in the world?
And I think that what we're seeing in Gaza is we have a window into Muslims really acting like Muslims, mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. And so that is why we are seeing people coming to Islam. What we need then is for the rest of us to pull ourselves together so that when they come to Islam, they enter into a community, we have the capacity and the heart and mind and programs to support and help them along the way.
If you had the chance to speak to all non-Muslims in the world, what would you like to say to them?
I would say you have an opportunity to fill the emptiness inside. Islam can answer all your questions about what happens after death, all those questions of things that I was so unsure of, so that there's just no clarity about. Islam answers these questions and gives you purpose and a map for existence. And so you can fill that space inside that is empty and yearning for God. Islam is a real option, is a real solution for that emptiness. And I pray for you that you find that fulfillment.